Growing up in my family meant living in the shadow of my perfect older brother. I was always the disappointment child in our wealthy Boston home, watching as my parents showered Jason with praise and opportunities while barely acknowledging my existence. For years, I wondered why they seemed to love him so much more than me. Then I discovered the shocking family secret that would change everything. The golden boy they adored was not who they thought he was. Before I get into my story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. If family secrets and sweet revenge are your thing, hit that subscribe button now, and join me as I reveal how I finally made my parents see the truth they had been blind to for decades. The first memory I have of feeling like an outsider in my own family was at my 6th birthday party. My father Thomas, a high-powered attorney at a prestigious Boston law firm, spent most of the afternoon on his phone discussing a case. My mother Stephanie, who owned an upscale art gallery in the city, seemed more concerned with ensuring the party decorations matched her carefully curated aesthetic than whether I was enjoying myself. Meanwhile, Jason, my brother, who was 3 years older, somehow managed to become the center of attention at my own celebration. When he showed off a soccer trophy he had won the previous day, my parents beamed with pride, my father finally putting down his phone to examine the trophy while my mother snapped countless photos. My birthday cake remained uncut on the kitchen counter. Our home in suburban Boston was spacious and elegant, filled with expensive art and designer furniture. From the outside, we appeared to be the perfect American family. My father, with his tall, athletic build and prematurely gray hair that made him look distinguished rather than old. My mother with her perfectly maintained blonde bob and signature pearl necklace. Jason with his effortless charm, athletic prowess, and stellar grades. Then there was me, Ronald. A bit shorter than the rest of the family, with darker features that always made relatives comment on how I must take after some distant relative. While Jason excelled at sports, I preferred reading and music. While he brought home straight, as without seeming to study, I worked twice as hard for slightly above average grades. Our family room told the story better than words could. One entire wall dedicated to Jason's achievements, football trophies, academic awards, newspaper clippings about his accomplishments. My saxophone competition certificate was tucked away on a small side table partially hidden by a decorative vase. Christmas mornings provided another stark contrast. I vividly remember when Jason turned 16 and received a brand new car with a giant red bow in the driveway. That same year I got a practical winter coat and some books. When I asked later if I would get a car for my 16th birthday, my mother patted my hand and said, "We will see what you earn, Ronald." Jason worked hard for his rewards. The only person who seemed to see me was my maternal grandmother, Eleanor. During family gatherings, while everyone fawned over Jason, Grandma Eleanor would seek me out. "Come sit with me, Ronald," she would say, patting the seat next to her. "Tell me about your music." She attended every one of my school concerts, even when my parents had important commitments that prevented them from showing up. I tried everything to earn my parents' approval. When academic excellence did not work, I poured myself into music, practicing saxophone until my lips were numb. I joined debate club, hoping my father would appreciate my interest in argumentation and logic. Nothing seemed to measure up to the effortless way Jason commanded their love and attention. The confusion about my place in the family only deepened during my high school years. By then, Jason was at Harvard, exactly where my parents had always expected him to be. My father spoke of nothing else at his law firm parties, which I was forced to attend. "My son is at Harvard," he would announce proudly to colleagues, never mentioning his second son standing right beside him. My resentment toward Jason grew, though I knew rationally it was not his fault. He was simply playing the role assigned to him, just as I played mine. Still, his visits home from college were painful. The house would transform in anticipation of his arrival. My mother would prepare his favorite meals, my father would clear his busy schedule. The turning point came during my junior year of high school. I overheard my parents talking late one night as I passed by their partially open bedroom door. "He is just so different from the rest of us," my mother said, her voice tinged with something that sounded like disappointment. "I know," my father replied. "Sometimes I wonder." His voice trailed off, but those words planted a seed in my mind that would eventually grow into a life-changing revelation. Northwestern University became my escape. I chose journalism as my major, partly because it was as far from my father's legal profession as I could get, and partly because I had developed a hunger for uncovering truth. Chicago was far enough from Boston that visits home could be limited to major holidays, giving me room to breathe and discover who I was outside of being the family disappointment. During sophomore year, I met Amanda in my investigative reporting class. She was brilliant, straightforward, and saw me in a way no one in my family ever had. The first time I brought her home for Thanksgiving, she noticed things about my family dynamics that I had long since accepted as normal. "Your brother looks nothing like you," she observed as we drove back to Chicago. "Actually, he does not look much like your parents either. You look more like your dad than he does." I brushed it off at the time. Different genetics, I guess. But her comment stayed with me, adding to the growing pile of questions I had been collecting since that overheard conversation years before. My 21st birthday marked another painful milestone in the pattern of family favoritism. I had specifically asked my parents if we could have dinner together when they were in Chicago for a charity event. They had agreed, but when the day came, they called to cancel. Jason had just received a promotion at his investment banking job, and they had decided to take a last-minute flight to New York to celebrate with him instead. "We will make it up to you, Ronald," my mother promised over the phone. This is just such an important moment for Jason. Something inside me snapped. And my birthday is not important. My entire life has been spent watching you celebrate Jason while ignoring me. Can you name one of my college achievements? Do you even know what classes I am taking? The silence on the other end of the phone answered my questions. When my father finally spoke, his voice was cold. "You are being dramatic, Ronald. We have always treated you and your brother equally." That blatant lie was what finally pushed me to confront the reality of my family situation. After hanging up, I spent my birthday with Amanda, who took me out for drinks and listened as years of hurt poured out of me. "There has to be a reason," she said. "No parents are this blatantly preferential without some underlying cause." A month later, my grandmother Eleanor fell ill. Cancer had spread throughout her body and the doctors gave her weeks to live. Despite my busy schedule, I immediately flew to Boston to be by her side. My parents visited briefly between work commitments. Jason sent flowers, but explained he was too busy with an important client to come immediately. During one of our final conversations, Grandma Eleanor held my hand tightly and looked at me with urgent eyes. "Ronald, there are things about your family you should know," she said, her voice weak but determined. "Things that happened before you were born. Your mother and father went through a difficult time. Thomas was away often for work, and Stephanie was lonely. There were complications that have affected how they see you and your brother." Before she could say more, she was overcome by a coughing fit. The nurse came in and asked me to leave so my grandmother could rest. I promised to return the next morning, but she slipped into unconsciousness during the night and passed away before I could hear the rest of her story. After the funeral, while helping to clean out her apartment, I discovered a box of old letters in her closet. Most were everyday correspondence, but a few caught my attention. They were from my mother to Eleanor, dated around the time of her pregnancy with Jason. In them, she mentioned marital problems, Thomas being away on extended business trips and feeling abandoned. In one particularly emotional letter, she wrote about seeking comfort elsewhere and feeling guilty about decisions she had made. The letters were not explicit enough to confirm my growing suspicion, but they added fuel to the fire. The tension within our family continued to escalate after Eleanor's death. Without her buffering presence, holiday gatherings became even more strained. That Thanksgiving, when Jason announced he was looking to buy his first home, my parents immediately offered to contribute a substantial down payment as an early inheritance. When I asked if I would receive a similar gift when I was ready to buy property, my mother looked uncomfortable. My father cleared his throat and said, "Jason has established himself in a stable, lucrative career. When you demonstrate similar stability, we can discuss appropriate support." Jason smirked across the table. "Not everyone is cut out for success, little brother. Some of us just have the right genes for it, I guess." His casual cruelty, combined with the mention of genes, struck a nerve. That night I made the decision to uncover the truth about our family once and for all. My journalism training provided me with research skills that proved invaluable as I began digging into my family history. I started with basic facts, creating a timeline of significant events. Jason was born in September, which meant he was conceived in December or January. I searched through old family records and discovered my father had been on an extended business trip to London during January and February of that year, returning just a few days before my mother announced her pregnancy. This detail alone was not conclusive, but it raised questions. Next, I tracked down Marlene Sullivan, my mother's closest friend, during those early years of marriage. Now living in a retirement community in Florida, she was initially reluctant to speak with me when I called. "Some things are better left in the past, Ronald," she said carefully. "Please, Marlene," I pressed. "I have lived my entire life feeling like an outsider in my own family. I need to understand why." After a long pause, she agreed to talk to me on the condition that I never reveal she was my source. According to Marlene, during my father's frequent absences for work, my mother had become close with a family friend named Daniel Wilson. They had an affair that lasted several months, ending abruptly when my mother discovered she was pregnant. "Your mother was convinced the child was Daniel's," Marlene revealed. "She even told him so. But she decided to stay with your father and pass the child off as his. Daniel moved away soon after. Last I heard, he was living somewhere in the Pacific Northwest." This revelation hit me like a physical blow. Could Jason, the golden child, actually be the product of an affair? It would explain so much about our family dynamics. If my parents knew or suspected this truth, it might explain their overcompensation with Jason and emotional distance from me, the child who reminded them of a difficult period in their marriage. Using social media and public records, I located Daniel Wilson in Seattle. He was now a successful architect with his own firm. I debated for weeks whether to contact him, weighing the consequences of disrupting multiple lives against my need for truth.